Hi, I'm Kalyan Karmakar, and welcome to Foodocracy for Her, which is India's longest running podcast dedicated to women in the food business. And we've spoken to the amazing folks. And today I'm very, very proud and excited to bring to you Monika Manchanda from Bangalore. And she's one of the first friends whom I've known from the world of food writing, food blogging, whatever you want to call it. But she has shown me around Bangalore. We've eaten together when we haven't. Then she's given me lovely tips, and sometimes in Mumbai also we've caught up and had some Malwani fish. And lovely to see you, Monica, always shining bright and with a big smile. So welcome on board.
Hi Kalyan, good to be here, and I'm watching some great episodes of Food Crazy. Food Crazy for Her, is that what it is?
Foodocracy, foodocracy,
Foodocracy,
food crazy.
always
I'll get trolled if I say food crazy for
yeah, and
her.
sometimes it's difficult in hashtags, right? You
No,
can't
that's
really figure
yeah.
out what it
So
is.
it's like democracy, so foodocracy. Yes.
Foodocracy, that's a great, good name, and I've been watching some lovely episodes and I've been introduced to some women I didn't know in the food industry via that podcast, and I think it's good work that you're doing there, Kalyan.
Thank you so much. It's been an amazing journey because there are many people whom one didn't know that much before, but even people whom one knew and interviewed, there's so much one learned. And
Yeah,
today I'm very
absolutely.
excited because I'm going to tap on your wisdom of navigating, the food world over so many years. So I'm going to really take a lot of insights from you, which while it's not really for women, it's everyone, and there's a lot
And
to.
I hope there is wisdom to share.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, Monica, I mean, I don't want to do that typical thing of how do you get into food blogging and all because you've been covered in so many interviews and stories and stuff. But if I remember right, you were in the IT industry.
correct.
Then you had your son, and you took a bit of a break. You discovered food blogging, and then realized that this might be a nice career to pursue, right? If one
Right.
broadly sense it. Okay, so now this last 1.5 years or 16 months or 13 months or whatever of the pandemic have these 16 months have made or 13 months have made people question what they're doing in life. Sometimes they've realized that from now on they want to choose and do what they want to do versus doing what they were doing earlier. Sometimes it's not a choice. Sometimes because of job loss or business
Yep.
shutting down, people have had to explore new things. A lot of our home chefs, for example, have done that, where say the family business or the family's chief wage earner lost a job, and suddenly the woman took over and is running the family and stuff. But it's not easy, right? So tell
Absolutely
me
not. Yeah.
tell me a bit about that period where you decided to get into food in a professional way, and what are the sort of obstacles which you faced, both external as well as internal? Because I'm sure there will be a lot of self doubts.
Absolutely.
The
And
salary package versus
yeah,
sitting.
yeah. And
So take me back to those days. When exactly was that? Which year roughly?
my son, it was 2000. I'm trying to remember. My son was 1.5 years. So it was somewhere around 2008-ish, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken, 2008, 2000,
So similar
late
time.
2000.
I started writing my blog in 2007,
Yeah, I
but I
think, yeah,
moved over in 12, 13 to
correct. So,
professional.
yeah. So I think it was 2008, 2009 sometime,
Hmm.
maybe mid 2000, early 2009-ish or late 2008 is when this was. And self doubts are something that we continue doing, right? I mean, we all go through the imposter syndrome in million ways, and especially women. It's just ingrained in us. Like, self doubt is ingrained in us from the very beginning. And it was funny. I was brought up. We are three sisters, and my dad and my mom always brought up saying that you have to be independent, and independence in those days meant that you have to earn, right? I mean, you have to be able to bring salary home and many other things, but that was one of the most important things for them: education plus earning. And that was something I think I learned right from the age of 6 or 7, and it was so deeply imbibed in me that I actually, when I gave up and took a break because of a million things that happened, I think I went into a trip of depression. Anyway, there was PPD, and I just couldn't deal with the fact that I don't have that salary coming in month on month, especially when you're used to of a IT salary. It's a nice little SMS that comes to end of the month, which makes you happy, right? I mean, we have all gone through it. 30th of every month, that feels really good to see, okay, X amount has been credited to your account. And then suddenly that vanishes out of the blue. And all your life, you have thought of yourself as an independent woman who does not need to ask anybody for anything. And it is not that I mean, you have savings. It is not that you need to ask, but that thing is constantly running in your mind that you don't have that salary coming in, and you might have to at some point of time go back to your husband to say, okay, I want to buy this, can I? And that is hugely bothersome. That is, I think that is one of the most biggest internal struggle that I dealt with, apart from the fact that you feel so useless suddenly. I mean, you have been a person who was very busy. I had a team across running across 3 time zones. I was handling a team of 6-7 people reporting into me, and suddenly all you have a home to run. And that was the hollow that I was internally dealing with. And food happened, and food has always been special to me. Food happened, and I started exploring it more. There was a satisfaction of doing what you like. There was a passion, but this emptiness continued, right? And that is when I sat down and say, okay, what can I do which will make this work, in the sense that even if I don't go back to my IT salary, at least I earn a respectable amount to, and these were not days today. I mean, people were not ready to pay the kind of amount for home chefs and home bakers that we are being paid today back in 2008, 2009. I mean, so I started from the, and I one thing that I learned, and I think again going back to my parents, was that education for anything is very important, right? I mean, for you to be able to do anything well, you need to know that thing very well. And that is where I took my learnings for, and I said, okay, let me go back and study food, and I will do whatever I can to, if I have to make this a serious career out of it, I will make it, I'll go back and study food. I did a 6-month long certification in baking, which kind of helped the initial part, which was primarily a home baker supplying to cafes, corporates. And I think that is where I also use some of my corporate networks. And I think a lot of time, and I want to touch upon here, a lot of time women feel very constrained or very guilty to use their networks. We have not, networking is not something that comes naturally to us. We are always, networking is always thought of as a man domain, right? I mean, you catch up over drinks and smoke, or even in offices, in offices it's a break, right? I mean, and women are typically left behind. So I think, and I think that was another struggle that I did. I said, no, I have to get over it. I have to network with people. I have to meet people and use people. Not use, I mean, connect with people that I know and I can help me progress. There is no harm in that, right? So I connected back with the folks in HR I knew, folks in admin I knew through my corporate journey. And that is where the corporate orders started coming in. And I think that gave me a little boost, because when you do a home chef, home baker order for a house, it is typically a small order. But the minute you move to corporate orders, the orders are large. And that brings in 2 things. One is that money comes in. 2 is also confidence comes in, that you can actually do this. I mean, it is not just 1 cake that you can bake or 12 cupcake that you can bake. If an order for 100 cupcakes or 150 plum cakes or 150 pies come in, you are actually capable of doing that. Because when you make the move from IT to this, it is a new field. You are as good as a fresher, and there's a lot of learning and a lot of confidence building, your own skills that needs to be taken. So I think that happened, and I started realizing that, okay, I can do this. I mean, not from the perspective of just this, but and it started growing, and it started growing to an extent that I didn't think I could handle it alone. I hired an intern who would help me out in baking. But there was one point of time where I was at crossroads thinking, either I open my cafe or expand it to a level where I can call it a commercial business, both from the perspective of career growth. And career growth is not just money, right? Career growth is also where you see yourself in 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, what you want to become, how your path progress, you want to keep growing day by day, in month on month, and you want to see that trajectory at the end of it and feel satisfied with it in some ways. So what should I do? And that was a point I actually almost gave up on food and said, okay, cafe chalana mere bas ka baat nahi hai. And because I'm also a person who likes to travel, who likes to take time off.
Yes.
Yeah. And once anyone who's run a restaurant, and I had an experience of talking to people till then closely, saying that if I run a cafe means I'm just wedded to it permanently, and at least for the next 5 years I'm not going anywhere. And that was something which wasn't really sitting with me in terms of my personal interest. And I actually thought maybe it is time to go back, sorry, and maybe it is time to go back to corporate and my desk job of IT, etc., etc. And that is where, I mean, sometimes luck has its ways, right? That is when the whole first consulted gig of designing dessert menu for Bug Bug Bar landed, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The thrill of commercial kitchen was something else, and I think that was a game changer for me. I said, okay, this is what I want to do. Whatever it means, stopping my life or not. I need the commercial kitchen thrill in my life, because things are different. The scale is different, the satisfaction is different, and the way it works is really, really different. So, and again, I went back to my thought process of what can I do to make this work. And I said, okay, time to probably do one more level of studies. And I went back to the Harvard course on food and science, where it is a two-part course, and it talks about, and it was mind-blowing, because it is pure chemistry. And I honestly went into expecting something else, but I got something else. But whatever I got was great. It is pure chemistry on what happens when I throw in potato in a boiling water, and how does the molecules break down, and how does flavor work with each other. And it was amazing. And I think that's one of
This is an online course, or
it is an online course. And I think interestingly, when I did it, it was paid. But I think right now, because of pandemic last year, they actually opened the course free for everyone. It is not a certificate course anymore if you do it free, but they have opened it up free for everyone. And it's an amazing course. If you are interested, if science is your deal, it is a brilliant course. It explains so many things with you and changes the way you look at cooking per se. In many ways. So I did that, and I started religiously kind of working towards getting consulting gigs, working with brands, not just for promotional, but also working with them in the back of how can I develop recipes for you? For example, multiple Philips appliances recipe books is something that I have developed recipes for. I work with Thermomix for doing their Indian recipes. There is also a book which I'm currently working with them, which is a commissioned book for Thermomix from Thermomix India. So, I mean, it gave me insights. And I think one of the things to think about when you are in food business, to constantly keep yourself updated on what's happening in the industry, right? Because the industry is changing so often. And that is how it went. And consulting gigs kept happening. I think I did about 9 cafes and about 4 or 5 cloud kitchens, worked with about 8-9 brands, not just for promotions, but for recipe development for their backend and for their test kitchens and stuff like that. And that was really, really exciting. That is how, I navigated the first few years in some ways.
Wow, that was so amazing. And thank you for sharing, one, so candidly, and two, so meticulously. I'm sure there can be lots and lots of people who can relate to it and who are going through that. So I must say that if you remember, there was this time when I met you at Koramangala. I was doing a consulting gig for a research agency, and we went to Krishna Cafe, and you introduced me to the concept of the pori dosa, and
Correct.
It's has become my order now wherever I go.
Just one second.
Sure.
One second.
I'll pause it. And since then, the pori dosa has become my order everywhere without potato. But that was the time when I sort of moved from market research into food. And the challenges are there everywhere. So like for women, like you said, this imposter syndrome and made to feel guilty and all of that. But if you've been raised as a man, and I'm not I try to
I'm
get sympathy for
sure.
that.
Yeah.
But you know,
No.
you're conditioned into the fact that you should be the wage earner, you should be the provider,
Correct.
and all of that, and then taking a break. And my wife Kainaz was more supportive, and she said that, look, I'm working and we have our savings, and you got a chance to do something which which you want to do. So why are you this thing? But you know, having been grown up, and also my dad passed away when I was pretty young, so my mom was very conscious that we should be independent and up on our feet,
Correct.
and that's the environment in which I've grown. So I mean, you were talking of depression, and the same thing happened to me. I mean, I slid into anxiety and then clinical depression, which I didn't know of at that point.
True.
But I was going through that when I'd gone to Bangalore, and I remember at that time you're feeling so lost, so this thing, and I think we met twice at Krishna Cafe or this that, and just being able to talk to someone and sort of see what's happening over there, and this is why what you shared now is going to be so relevant to people. Also, this is a side of your life which is not perhaps that well known, and I'll tell you why. Because even I do a bit of consulting, but I do consulting on brands, not on recipes. So what we do as consultants with clients, like you do, is often behind the screen, behind
Correct.
the
Yeah.
scenes.
Yeah.
So people
Yeah.
don't. So people get to know us because of our social media persona, which in your
Absolutely.
case was the blog and then Instagram and so on. So and that's also an important part of your persona. So I want to ask you a bit about that, because see, when you started, you made a reference to your baking. You were cinnamon bakes, right, at
Correct.
that time. So
Yes.
your profile was entirely that of bake and chocolates and this that. But then things progressed. I mean, we got to know about your love for Indian food, and especially Punjabi and South Indian. South Indian being from your husband's side. He's
Yes,
Kannada.
that's right.
Yeah,
He's a
Kannadiga.
mix
You're
of no, he's not a Kannadiga. He's a Telugu, and so
yeah.
my father-in-law was from Andhra. My mother-in-law is from Andhra. And my father-in-law was Tamil. So there is a bit of everything happening in our house, and we live in Bangalore. So there's a bit of lot of Kannadiga, lot of mixed South Indian food that happens in our house in many ways. Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course, like you spoke about travel, and the three of you, you and your
Yes.
husband, son, you keep going on these lovely road trips, and you write about the places you come across, and not just you know palaces in
Correct.
Rajasthan and so on, and Narendra Bhavan and all of that.
Yeah.
Narendra, of course,
That happens too. I mean, I
yeah,
don't
but
mind going back to Narendra Bhavan for a nice G&T, but yeah.
yes, but also the so
Yes, also the small little places. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah. So how did you make sure that the essence of Monika Manchanda sort of navigates smoothly across these different paths? Did you sort of consciously define what your brand would be, or is it more yourself which came out naturally over there?
I think it is more. I mean, if I have to pick one, it'll probably the later. I mean, it is just more what myself that came
Hmm.
out slowly and steadily. And like you rightly said, probably the consulting part of me is like hugely missing. And sometimes I actually meet clients and meet friends who know what I do
But that's in
professionally.
a way
And
natural. If you see, for
correct.
example, that's how professional things work. Like, for example, my wife works in an advertising agency, and I mean, they do so much work, but people know much more about what I've had for breakfast than
Yeah, yeah.
that's
So I
how
mean,
that's the way of the world. I
correct. So, and I
mean.
often tell people that what you see on anybody's social media is not the full life, right? And
Hmm.
it is probably a fraction of their life. It's probably a segment of their life that they want to, in some ways, portray. And it is not that they are trying to hide the rest of the life, but that's what becomes the language your social media speaks, right? For example, I mean, it just happened naturally that travel, food, my dog, my son became a part of my social media in some ways. And the consulting part more or less was a part, and there are many reasons for this. There's not just that I want to hide it. There is also, when you're doing consulting, there is a lot of NDAs involved sometimes, right? There is
Confidentiality, right? I mean, I was in
confidential.
market research. I mean, that's
Yeah, there's a
you
lot of
can't talk about a client's work.
you just can't always talk about your client. You can't always talk about what you're doing at the client's work,
Sometimes you
and
can't do later also. Like, for example,
sometimes you can't do
uh,
later also. Absolutely.
I remember interviewing someone for Foodocracy for her. Yeah, the folks behind the chocolates, harsh chocolates. So they are doing the desserts for some cafe in Bombay, but they can't disclose that.
You can't.
I'm sure you
And
know that, right?
and I have done multiple
Yeah.
projects like this where I have kind of done the menu, but you can't openly talk about that I have designed the menu, because that's how it works. That's how
Yeah,
consultancy
you're paid
works.
for doing that. Yeah.
You're paid for doing it, and that the buck stops there, right? I mean, and
Hmm.
before you get on the project, you sign the NDAs and all of this, and the confidential is a huge deal. And so that's how it works sometimes. And I think we need to look at it with a pinch of salt for everybody. Everybody we look at social media, we need to think that there is life beyond it, right? I mean, and it is a segment, and it is a part of your life you used to choose and share on social media. Is that what everybody sees? And for me, the whole building of it kind of happened naturally, because one thing that I believe in very strongly, and I think I've said this multiple times before, and you and me had a conversation with about to, is being honest to your readers, right? I mean, I won't say something I don't believe in, whether it is a personal share or even if it is a brand promotion that
Hmm.
I'm doing. So
Hmm.
and I feel when you want to build that integrity or that honesty in your platforms, you end up sharing what you're doing, and that
Yes.
just becomes you in some ways, right? So I mean, at least a part of your life comes there. So if you look at it, that's what it is: the food I cook at a regular basis, the food I eat at a regular basis, the drives we take, the places we stop, the silly conversations that me and my son have, and the things he throws at me, googlies he throws at me sometimes, the play, the stuff I play with, the
Yes.
fluff, it what it makes to social media. And I also, but on the other side, once so I want to touch upon this, maybe I don't know whether how relevant this is to food or
No,
not,
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
but once I reached a point where I realized that I do have a voice, right? I do have a presence, and I do have a voice that people, it might not be 1 million followers, but you have a distinguished voice that people listen to. I also
Exactly.
realized somewhere that in some ways we are responsible for a few things, and like everybody says, with great power comes great responsibility. I don't know whether great can be used there or not, but whatever, little power, and I think responsibility comes with this. So over time, I also started including and talking about a few things that are close to my heart: equality, feminism, plagiarism, and other
Hmm.
stuff that you want to talk about. I'm from the past 1.5, 2 years, more from, actually from the past 5 years, but more so from past 2 years, I have been talking a lot about politics on my, for example, on my Insta story, social media, because I feel that is reflective of where I am, where my mind
Hmm.
space is right now. And I think that is what I want to say about brand building of Monika Manchanda, if you want to call it, because Monika Manchanda on social media is what Monika Manchanda's head is, right? I mean, and it kind of reflects many times without being
Yes.
really planned.
It's so lovely that you said this, because when I was getting into this interview, I was just thinking that you said you've been here from 2008, so you've seen how things have changed. Now, if you look at people who came into this early, and I'm just talking of names which come to mind, and people like
Yeah.
you, Nandita here, Saffron Trail, Rushina over here, Sai, Ria Mitra Dalal, or Bong Mom's cookbook, and things like that. The social media image which they put out was their personal space, and with time, you got to know so much about their and our lives.
Yes.
People who matter to them, people who don't matter to them, food which they don't like. I mean, this that there was a certain natural fluidity to them, and that okay, this is what you can expect from Monica's feed, Rushina's feed, Nandita's feed, Kalyan's feed, and there must be some other guys, right?
They
there must be
were, they were a lot more, yeah.
Shanky was there,
Correct.
Shankar Chan. Kurush I won't consider a blogger because he
Yeah,
writes one blog a
he's,
year, but
yeah.
he's really found his face in the voice.
And I think during
Right?
the lockdown, especially,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
come
he's
more
really
online. Yeah,
he's
he was more
yeah, I think
offline before, and he's
this is really unleashed. Yeah, because earlier he was a college
correct.
professor, so you wouldn't see.
Correct. So he was busy
So
on the
this
day,
is
and all those
yeah,
things will
yeah.
happen. Yeah.
So he's
And
found his
I'm
voice.
glad. I mean,
Yeah.
like me, I was talking to Kurush a while ago saying that as much as I hate online workshops, I'm glad that it happened, because I connected to Kurush online Bombay workshops I
Yeah.
couldn't have attended, right? So all of that
Yeah.
kind of happened in some
Yeah.
ways. Yeah.
Yeah. So the point I'm making is that, and then now there have been many more people who've come into the social media world and with huge followers and stuff like that. But when I see them, and correct me if I'm being too judgmental, but they seem to be very focused on the task. Like if they've come to show a recipe or show a brand or whatever, then there's a, and if there's a certain Instagram trend, like this, or that particular song, and stuff. Everyone that morning's doing that. Like you might be very serious dietitians who are
And then
doctors,
you're suddenly
but
doing
when you're
this,
like
this.
tack, but I'm not deriding, but
It is an interesting format, and I'm very impressed by people
but
who
there seems to be
created it.
a certain sameness which comes to it. Like it's not
Yeah,
that
it does.
this thing. So what is your point on it? Because this seems to be the way the world is moving. So should we cry about the way things are, or what's the ideal balance according to you? Because there must be merit to what's happening now, which is why people are doing that. So
And
yeah,
Kalyan, I wish I knew the answer. I would have moved between the middle line myself if I knew the answer. But again, I think I'll go back to saying what you are comfortable with, what your goals are. Think about your goals. See, for example, the people that you're talking about, I mean, and there are many, and there are many good ones too. I mean, I'm not
yeah,
saying all of them are bad. There are some excellent ones. There are some excellent recipe sharers who go through this and who do this. But I think we have to step back and think on what their goals are, right? A lot of them primarily are, and it has become a single-minded career, right? The whole
yes,
Instagram influencer, right?
yes,
Like people like you and me, we have our online space to talk about, but that's not our only career. That's not
yes.
where our bread and butter comes from. Butter jam maybe comes from there now and then, but the bread and butter doesn't come from there,
A lot
right?
of bacon comes.
Yeah, a lot of bacon definitely comes from there, but the bread and butter, there is consulting for you, consulting for me, LiveAltLife for me now. I mean, Nandita is writing books, Ria and Kurush are doing workshops
Workshops.
and doing all
Rushina is
the
doing hers, the
catering.
Spice Chronicles, and
Yeah, so there is
Archana has become like this conglomerate called
conglomerate of many things, and she
Archana's
has their own.
Kitchens.
Correct. And she has her
Yeah.
own cake mixes now and other stuff, right? So, I mean, if you look at all of us, and I think this is a phase in everybody's life.
And
I
I've
mean,
just
and
mentioned a few. I mean, there's so many other
so
Roots,
many others,
Sai,
anybody. And,
yeah.
the point I'm trying to make here, Kalyan, is that I think this is a phase in every food influencer or food writer's life, right? You start from here. And if you think of us, all of us that you're talking about right now, I mean, if you go 4 5 years back, 5 years back, we were all pretty much focused on food writing, and we were earning whatever we were earning from food writing, a little bit on the side gigs. But we have realized that there's more we can do. And the food writing from blogs, I'm not saying food writing has stopped, but food writing from blogs has evolved into a larger food writing. Somebody has picked up journalism, somebody has picked up books, somebody has picked up other stuff, and the career has moved on. This exists as our voice, as our calling card, as our portfolio in some manners, but this doesn't happen. So I feel the people that you're talking about now, who are on the trend, who are catching on to trends, doing other stuff, are just one step before us in their careers progression, and
Yes.
they will move on from here to there. And currently they are fully focused on building their brand, earning from this brand they are building, and that is why the trends are important to them. Trends is what catches on, right? I mean, you do a reel, I do a reel, and somebody else does a reel which is trend, which is, you do a reel on, let's say, cats and little omelets in the morning, and I do a reel on little recipe that I created which was close to me, and a third person who's an influencer from now does a reel on the whole trend which is catching. And chances are that their reels will definitely get more views than our reels, and that is what they want, right? Because that is a wave they are catching right now, and they will eventually move to where we are
Mm.
and find a space here as well as here.
And
What
maybe
we have done,
much more than
much
where
more
we
than
are,
here.
because
But what I mean to say here is that space in the platform and space outside the platform. Currently, they're just building a space inside the platform, which we have already built and moved on to a space. So I think that is what is the difference between how they are handling Instagram and how we are handling Instagram. Nothing is right and wrong. Everything has a place, and I think
and there are examples. Like I know a few of them. Like for example, I don't know if Varnika one considers as Instagram,
correct.
because
Yes,
she was more journalist, writer, blogger. But ever since she sort of came across this delectable Punjab and going to her roots, I mean, that's when she started doing workshops, pop-ups, courses, and so on. Or just down the road is Vinay Grover, Lost and Hungry. So
correct.
he was an Instagrammer doing photography, does
And
that
he's formed a
working
whole
with
studio,
Mumbai
right?
food, and
Right.
now
Yeah.
he's running a business. He's in a
Correct.
studio. He's employing people. He's
And
supporting to
it's
the
amazing what he's
running
doing,
of the
right?
family, and
Yeah.
there must be millions, so many other
Correct.
stories. It's just that sometimes we just see this, but we don't see, like,
Yeah,
what's
and I
going
think
on
that's a
there.
phase. Yeah, correct. And I think there's a
Yeah,
phase, and all
yeah.
of us, all of them will also find their space. And I think that's what is amazing about being online, right? There is space for everyone. There is a place for everyone, and everyone kind of finds their own
So
places.
how do you stay relevant? At a time like this, when people are, like, working on trends and higher follow counts and this that. It's a bit like cricket, right?
So if you look
When
at the follower
one day
count,
happened, when one day happened, and there was Gavaskar, and then again
yes,
2020 happened, and the Gangulys and Tendulkars had to adapt. So how do you stay relevant?
I think
I'm looking
for
to learn
me,
also.
but I don't know whether I can teach you anything, Kalyan.
No,
You're much more relevant than I am, I
no,
think.
no.
And
We
I
learn
think
from each other.
I think I've given up on the race of being relevant long ago. I think that's one of the key takeaways for me myself. I'm not saying I now don't want to be there, but I think I have stopped being on the race in my head, at least in my mind. I'm no more a part of the race, right? I mean, if I'm relevant, I'm relevant. If I'm not relevant, sure, I find other things to do which make me happy and my readers kind of
Hmm.
continue reading. Numbers are something that, I mean, I'm at what, 30K followers. I mean, and
On
I'm sure if
Instagram.
I would have on Instagram, if I had, I would have put in more effort to stay relevant. Maybe I would have been 1 million, 50K, 80K, whatever the number could be. But does it really matter? Am I able to engage with those 30K followers? Well, are those 30K followers the followers that really want to listen to the voice I am saying? I think that's more important to me than anything else. And that's what kind of I focus on. And I think that's what it is. And I think for me, staying relevant is slightly different from staying on trend. Staying relevant is more important on catching on to the pulse of the industry. What is food industry doing in general? What are the new things that are happening in the industry that need a little exploration? For example, I'm right now in deep neck dive into fermentation, right? I mean, and I'm doing math and chemistry like mad. And those are the trends I want to catch up on.
Was
Those
that your
are
college background? Were you a chemistry student or something?
I was a chemistry student, and that somewhat
Ah,
helps me a little bit in doing what I'm doing. And
in fact,
uh,
Krish Ashok has written a lovely book, Masalas, on
correct,
the
I've read that book,
the
and it's a
molecules and
fantastic. Yeah,
chemistry.
yeah,
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 it
yeah.
took me back to those UGC class, countrywide classroom
Absolutely.
when you're in school, like, the physics principles, one molecule hitting the other, when I was in sixth and seventh standard.
Yes, and
Yeah,
it's amazing, right? I mean, if it is something you like, right?
yeah.
And then I mean, so I'm trying to see that if I can take that deep chemistry and simplify it a little and present it to audience as well as the kitchen that I run, right?
Hmm.
And for me, that is more staying relevant than staying relevant only on social media for. And if people connect to me, and I'm sure there's a tribe of people who want to listen to this, and I will attract those tribe of people will come to me, and I think that is how I find. I stay relevant or find my tribe, kind of find my readers or tribe, whatever you want to call it, kind of
Yeah, and,
stuff.
and and like, fermentation is something which for the last 2 or 3 years has been fermenting, in a sense. I
Yes,
remember
yes,
having a chat
absolutely.
with Vikramjit Roy when he moved into Bombay sometime back, and he was focusing a lot on fermentation. And at that time, we were sort of the same. But what I found interesting is that you are doing a lot of research, experimenting, this, that. But it's not that your feed is always about fermentation. You know,
It is
so
not because I don't
that's
know.
what you said earlier. That what you're seeing in someone's feed might not really be what they're doing, and
Yeah,
I also got this sense of satisfaction in something in at your end, in what you said maybe some minutes back, where you said that you've realized over the last 2 3 years that there's certain things which are important to you, and you've tried to sort of use your voice. Like, for example, I'll give two things which have driven me in food writing over the years. And that period when I was sort of getting out of depression is when I turned to Buddhism, and I was advised to first figure
yeah,
out what is my purpose in life. So at that time, I realized that what excites me the most is writing about food from people of different cultures, and helping people connect with that. So that's what I started doing. So from going to a place where I stopped writing, I started writing again. And then my book contract happened with Ashid. So we got in touch with me, India Food Network, of that. And like you said, sometimes magic just happens. I have always, I don't know whether it's like, because I grew up in Calcutta in a leftist environment, but I was more into James Bond than Rambo than the, the communist side. But I always sort of like to see myself in the corner of the small person. So I am always more excited about writing about the Krishna Cafe or the Veena Cafe, which you told me about, and such lovely idlis and stuff. Then, I mean, I admire what great chefs are doing, or hotels, luxury hotels are doing, and all that. But I think that there are people people
Talk
who can
about
talk
them.
about it
Yeah.
and talk about them better. And then the lockdown happened, where obviously there was not that much of exploring. So how did I keep myself busy? So then, one came across the home chefs, and I found this phenomenon. It's not a new phenomena, but during the lockdown, it was
It
amazing,
just
because
blew up.
now
Yeah.
there were people running their families or finding meaning in their life, and doing such fabulous food. In fact, my wife Kainaz, who's not so much into Indian food otherwise, she says that in the last 14 months we've had some of the best food in our life. So I don't know what was the point of. Yeah, the point of speaking was that finding something which is close to you, and this thing, and then it's also a question of personal choice. Like, I've grown up in an environment and family which didn't really encourage talking about politics in public, because I grew up in communist, where, I mean, people talk about the right and all of that nowadays, but what they forget is the left was also not too good, and we were told not to talk about politics because the cadres would beat you up and stuff. So I prefer to keep my political views to myself, but to each their own. But again, what was I saying? Yeah, the point of purpose. Yes, that is so important. But listen, Monica, I want to now ask you about the lockdown, which changed our life, and you, um, as a person, are so effervescent. You love meeting people. Of course, it's not always that behind a smiling visage, there's not something going on inside. But that's who you are. You're so supportive. You're out there meeting people. You love going on your drives. You love going on your vacations and stuff like that. And suddenly you are locked down. You actually went through at least 2 rounds of home isolation, if I remember
Yes.
right, and also like being cut off and stuff, not being able to go to your own studio in the beginning and this thing. So how did you deal with that, and how did you come out of it? Hoping that you have, of course.
So it was a hard time, and like you said, I think of myself as a people person. I mean, I
Yes, you
draw
are.
my energy as from
Yes.
people I meet, from friends, and from
Yeah, I mean, if I have
folks.
you on my panel discussion, like say the Times this thing at Bangalore, like half my job is done, because I know I don't need the coffee then, because there's Monica there.
Yeah, so I'm a people person, and it was hard not to meet people, right? And it was hard not to be able to draw that energy from folks well, the folks you inspire, the folks with you can have real, I mean, you can have food conversations. See, there's family which you can have X kind of conversations with, and then there are people who professionally, as friends, that you have different kind of conversations with. And I think all those conversations are important. Secondly, I mean, from the past seven seven years, I've now been working in commercial kitchens for various clients,
Yeah.
and not being able to step in commercial kitchens and not being able to cook was huge. I mean, and
And you said how excited you were when you first went into a commercial kitchen.
correct. I mean, I think everybody on my feed knew that when I went back to my commercial kitchen after lockdown, I was behaving like a child in a candy store, right? So
I felt like that when I
and
went
one
to
of the things that
Candies.
happened,
I felt like that when I went to
yeah.
Candies, which is a cafe down the road. Sorry for the bad
Yeah,
pun, but yes.
yeah, no, that was perfectly timed. So and one of the things that happened to me, and I think I used, I don't know whether it is good or bad, but I used food and knowledge of food and cooking food to deal with a lot of depression and clinical depression that I was going through. So I was in my mind also afraid, what will happen if it is taken away, right? That's a huge part of my calming system. That's a huge part of system that keeps me grounded. And Here Fluffy is, but
Fluffy. Okay, I'll show Loaf. He's quietly listening. But you continue.
yeah.
You
So I mean, it
continue.
was it was it was something which, and that fear was existing. Oh,
There's
hello
baby
baby,
Lo.
hello baby. So that was another part which was kind of bothering me, but I think one of the blessing in disguise which happened to me was LiveAltLife at the time of,
Yeah, I
right
wanted to
at the time of
tell us
lockdown
about
in
that.
many ways.
Yes,
Yeah,
Live Out Life. Yes.
So I joined LiveAltLife as a consultant about 2 years ago, uh, and 2.5 years ago. And so Vivek, who's the founder of LiveAltLife, I've known him from many years. His daughter and my son are good friends, and he reached out saying, I have an idea and I want to talk about it. And so I met him. So he's been a diabetic himself for a very long time of his life, and he had a tech startup, a fintech startup. He knew nothing about food, he knew nothing about medicine, but he was looking for a solution for his own diabetic. And when he sold his fintech startup, he kind of deep dive into finding a solution for it. And I think he went underground for about 3-4 months and read every book which is there. And when I went to him the first time, I looked at the books he had read. They were actually medical journals. They were the books that are taught in medical college. And his sister is a doctor, so I think that helped. And he kind of figured out that there is a solution that can actually reverse diabetes, but unfortunately it's not very popular. And that is when he got in touch with me. And food and nutrition is a large part of that solution. That would you want to work with us and kind of come up with a design this solution and take the food part of the solution to market. And that is when I joined them. The first 6-8 months sorry, the first 6-8 months I continued to work as a consultant with them. But the more I dig deeper, the more I realize this is something I'm loving, and this is something which is of deep interest to me. It challenges me in multiple more ways than one. It challenges me because I started looking at food very differently from what I have looked. I'm not saying food is healthy stuff I never knew before. I knew before, but the kind of science we went into was amazing, was mind blowing. And I have found myself as somebody who's always, I mean, and I think you probably come across in our conversation till now, that I've always been fascinated by the science part of it, right? So, and the whole thing brought an interesting twist to the whole science part of it. Also, I also did a nutrition course along. So I'm now a certified nutrition coach from Precision Nutrition. So I did that because it completely baffled me, and it completely made me very interested in it. And 6-8 months passed, and just before the lockdown, just after the lockdown happened, Vivek reached out and said, Monika, I think you're bringing great value. Why don't you come and join us? And we had a chat, and I kind of...
Sorry to interject, but I also remember that was the period when you were feeling very shaken. Like the
I was
first
feeling
month or
very
so of the
shaken.
lockdown.
The first
With
month
some of
or
us,
so, the
we were all
lockdown,
having these chats.
we all chats, right?
You,
You're
me,
shaken.
Rushina, Samir.
Correct.
We were all like, yeah, we were all sort of trying to push each other.
Correct. And shaken by many things, right? Shaken by how your personal life will go. Also shaken by where the profession career will go, right? I mean, suddenly food is all about, you didn't know what will happen. Well, you'll either get back to consulting. Restaurants are shutting. Who's going to need menu designs now anymore, right? I mean, so those kind of doubts are intense in your mind right now. And somebody who has dealt with them once and changed a career, it was even hard to me to think that I'll have to do it all over again. It was very overwhelming, and I was going through. I mean, and we formed a little WhatsApp group and we chatted, and there were a lot of self doubts and a lot of apprehensions and worries in my head at that time. I buried myself into sharing recipes. Yes, I mean, I started a project where I would share a recipe every day.
The videos you were doing. We all, I mean, and I remember they were so engaging. Like I knew the sort of storm you're going inside, but when you're in front of the camera, like for your audience, you were like right there
smiling and put that thing, because you
because that's what people needed then. People needed that.
And the recipe a day got huge response, and I was like, okay, people need this. If it is making somebody happy, then why not? If it is making me calm too, then why not do it? I also started a little project where I would do weekly Q&As on send me your ingredients and I will give you a recipe. And it was all fun, right? But I knew at the back of my mind that this is all fun. It is keeping me calm for a period of time, but this is not the solution of this, right? I need a larger solution that will get
I know, because I used to feel that. I used to feel that blog is fun. when I made the transition, but you need something serious. But actually, it might be fun. But tell me about LiveAltLife then. So
that is when I joined them as co-founder and the chief culinary officer, and it has been an amazing journey. So what we do, okay, let me just quickly take 5 minutes to explain what we do.
Yes.
We have worked the solution where we kind of have a holistic. Our motto is to eradicate diabetes from India. That's what we want to do, and by change of lifestyle diseases without medication. Is what we want to do. What is our aim and mission for the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years? And what we have done is we have, and again, we have taken a very science first approach to that. We have been on the drawing board charting out a solution for 1.5 years before we actually brought it to market. We have a holistic solution which takes care of a food and nutrition, and we have developed an AI which is exact on how much you need, what a person needs. So it is not an intuitive system. We have built an AI based on nutrition rules from various things, and meal plans are done according to it. We have a exercise and yoga module which is designed not to make you Salman Khan and give you 6 packs and abs, but to make your metabolism work better, to fix your metabolism. And we have people who are 75, 80 years of old who come online and do the yoga and exercise program and are fabulously happy with it. And we have a person who is gone, who has never ran his line before and did a 10K last week. And we were so proud and so happy with his progress. And we have also developed, looked at diagnostics a little differently, where we all do diagnostic tests, medical tests multiple times, but none of us are able to understand what's happening. And we have gone a step back and developed the AI for that too, which 2 steps. One, we have done a deep dive research on one of the things that we figured out when we did a market survey or when we did a work with our clients, what a lot of them suddenly out of the blue figure out that they're diabetic without any warnings before. Whereas when we actually understood diagnostic, there are many tests which actually give you warnings.
Our friend Kanish, for example.
Yeah, and there's so many.
Out of the blue, and he was in the hospital.
Out of the blue. And we had a client who went for a dental procedure and his bleeding wouldn't stop, and that is when he figured out he's diabetic. Otherwise, absolutely zero symptom. And we realized that this need not be the way. There are actually blood tests that you can do that can give you predictive analysis, and we call it Smart Health Risk Assessment, and that is one of our flagship products. And it gives you a futuristic view of your health too, especially considering from the point of view of lifestyle diseases like heart problems, diabetic, PCOS, etc. And we do tests that, and we do tests, but we also look at your lifestyle. What do you eat? How much what is your stress levels? How do you work out? And come up with a report based on inputs from whatever we take, which tells you what is your health now, what is your risk of these diseases in the future, and what can you do to mitigate it. So that is one of our flagship products called SHRA. The other is, of course, the Health Restore program, which is a diabetes reversal program, which is a 3-month program, and which we have just launched a 10 days Kickstarter program for that too, where we actually provide all 3 meals to you. You eat what we give you.
So is this only Bangalore or
It is currently only Bangalore based. We have a version of it called HR Lite, which is a Health Restore Lite, which we kind of talk about for people who need it very carefully and where we give recipes and advice, but it is primarily Bangalore.
So if I'm sitting in Bangalore, Mumbai, then I can do your version where you get the recipes, but it's up to me to sort of
correct. It is not. It is and it is not our primary program. It is not something that we market very often because we think we need a little more work to make it absolutely foolproof. And I think cooking at home sometimes, and a lot of our clients come and tell us that we know Gyan, but we are not able to implement Gyan. And we are all been there, right? We all been there.
So
right?
Tell me about it. I mean, your other project, which is Pickle Project. Last night at 2:33, before I went out to sleep, I was feeling hungry, and there's Saria Parsi Papad, which Maruk Mogredia had sent. She'd also sent a mango pickle with Narsari mango, and Riya had sent prawn pickle Parsi style. So at night, I went to the kitchen and I was taking Sarias and dipping into each pickle.
Right in the middle.
And little Nimki, my younger cat, he was sitting on top of the thing and looking at me like, what are you doing? So I know that I shouldn't be doing
And it
that.
is not that we don't know that we don't need, we
Yeah,
shouldn't eat at 2 o'clock,
yeah.
right? But we all do because it is not
Yeah,
very structured. And sometimes when
yeah.
you're just doing so we provide all 3 meals.
So I
We
like
have
the fact that you're doing that, that you're doing what you can control rather than,
correct.
being ambitious and saying, okay, I'm going to cure the world of diabetes. I would rather focus on what I can do well, as in you can do well, and do that
Yes.
properly. I love that rather than.
Yeah, so so we provide 3 meals. Our principles are very simple. We do zero processed food. We don't do grains, and essentially that it's a low carb diet. But
Hmm.
what more than low carb, what we have tried to control is that we do absolutely no processed food. Every flour, every masala, every sauce that comes in our kitchen is made from scratch. And
Wow.
I have a 3,800 square feet kitchen.
Where?
Because of
Where
that,
in Bangalore?
Madiwala. So, so it's close to Kormangla.
Achha.
So we
I know
I
that
have a
Kormangla, Indranagar,
correct,
Whitefield,
correct. So it's,
and then
yeah,
St. Mark's
so
Road.
it's, yeah, it's
To me,
close to
this is Bangalore.
Kormangla. Correct. So I have 3,800 square feet kitchen where
Yeah.
I have equipment that is not there in any normal kitchen. We have grinders and we have pure dehydrators because we don't want to use any processed food. Every flour, I mean,
So from being a
is
consultant to commercial kitchens, now you're running your own commercial kitchen.
I'm running my whole commercial. It is exciting. It's really,
Yes.
really fun. And I think that's what that's what has kept me sane in the past 16, 18 months.
The smile tells us so.
It's absolutely kept me sane. And though my son likes to tell everybody he meets that my mom has turned into a workaholic. But
listen. In another 2 years old, you will then be searching, where is my son? So like,
correct. Yeah, I know.
savor this bit.
Yeah.
From someone who's been a teenager once, let me tell you that.
Oh,
Listen,
that is already, sorry.
since you're talking of fermentation and, brains getting pickled and all of that, I'm sorry to close that part.
No,
but I want to
absolutely.
close it in an hour because otherwise in Instagram it spills in.
Yes, it
So
fills
in 2 minutes,
and
like,
we can keep talking. Yeah.
2 minutes, like, I'm not asking you to make Maggie, but tell me about the pickle project.
Yeah, so I mean,
And the
pickle
book you
project was
did.
another interesting thing that I picked up. And when COVID happened, especially the second wave happened, it hit us all very bad. It personally brought me down to hit me very hard because I felt helpless. I felt like I'm not doing anything, and there's so many people out there who are struggling. And I started volunteering in supplying food to people who were affected from
I
COVID.
remember that. Yes, you were doing.
And then I was hit with COVID myself and had to stop doing all of that. And then another wave of guilt took over, saying that, okay, what do I do now? How do I kind of help people who need help? And I think that is where the whole idea came up of this book. At the start of the year, I had actually started a project called Pickle with Cinnamon, which was essentially to talk about local pickles, about fermentation. And I would share a recipe a week about pickles, and we will do lives, etc., where we'll take a deep dive in pickle. But it took a backseat because of, like my son would say, my workaholism, and as well as the whole COVID coming in, right? So I thought, why don't I pick that and do something? So I converted it into a fundraiser. I reached out to a couple of industry folks that I've known from before, Sai, Rushina, Shreya, I mean, the people we got them,
Chia Sheds.
Shreya of Darth Devi. And all of them, people we know and people I trust with food, and people I've known for a very long time, right? They all were more than happy to contribute a recipe. So 10 recipes came from...
I would have been happy, but I love eating pickles. I've never made
yes.
So,
yeah. So that's why I didn't reach out to you, Kalyan, because I know I won't get a recipe from you.
If you needed someone to sample the pickles, I'll tell you what pickles I could do that.
Yeah. But, so I created a little ebook on pickle projects, which had about 20 odd recipes, the basics of making pickle, etc. And we sold it for fundraiser. I think the fundraiser closed at about 3.8 lakhs. And I'm actually still sending people books because people keep reaching out. And I'm saying, okay, donate to somebody and send me a screenshot and I'll send you a book. And I think till now we have raised about 4
people
lakhs.
can reach out to you on Instagram.
People can reach out to me in stuff.
So guys, you can still sort of, and pickles are evergreen and everlasting.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's not that you can still keep ordering the pickle book.
Yes, you can. You just have to send me a screenshot of a minimum of $750 that you donate to any charity you like, and I'll send you the book.
Oh, okay,
That's
okay.
the
So
deal there.
it's not that you tell which charity or you say
No,
this thing.
no, because I've
Okay,
closed
okay.
the fundraiser. Because I've closed
Okay,
the
okay.
fundraiser, then it's a task, right, for me to maintain it. So I tell them donate to anything and send me a screenshot that because I want to continue it to be continue about charity. So that's what it is. So you can buy the ebook if you want. Please reach out to me.
Wonderful. So that's, folks, is Monika Manchanda, my powerhouse of a friend. And as you realized over the course of this 1 hour, that she's really dynamite, and she's doing lots of stuff. And if you're in the industry and if you want a consultant or anything like that, just reach out to her, mail her, DM her, or whatever, and or look at her feed for some interesting stories. So thank you, Monika. Absolute pleasure chatting with you. Take
Thank
care.
you, Kalyan, and I hope I didn't ramble too much. And
Oh no.
It was a long conversation that never ended. Was not ending. I know. No.
It's not going to end because I'm going to pause the
I
recording.
know.
Then we should do a bit of like, the sort of chat which you won't do in public. I'm just joking.
Okay,
We don't bitch. We don't bitch.
Yeah,
We are good boys.
yeah, absolutely.
very
We're good
sanskari.
people. We are very good sanskari people. Absolutely.
Yes. We'll do namaskar to end.
Chalo. Thank you. Good chatting with you. Thank you, everybody, for listening in.
Bye.
Yes. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.